I'm TarotOracle, and in this series, we're going to teach you how to make your own tarot cards via your iPad and Procreate. Procreate is only $10. Grab an iPad that you already have, a used one. Follow along with me. This is sort of a digital tutorial for making tarot cards, a much more comprehensive tutorial with not only digital, but pastels, watercolor, oil paint, acrylic paint. In the description with my Patreon members get to see all that. So let's sort of go a little preview of what you get here. First thing we want to do is duplicate, or at least try to duplicate some basic things you're going to need to do digitally. The first one may be a gradient sky, like we have with the Smith & Morty Tarot and hundreds of other tarot cards. Let's see how to do that very easily in Procreate. We're going to go to layers. Your background color needs to be the color of the bottom of the sky. So we could go a little blue and make it really, really light blue, for example. That's going to be the first color in our gradient. Now we want to go to a new layer, which will be this one, which will be different than our background color. We want to choose the other color we're going to have as a gradient. Let's go ahead and do this sort of a darker, prettier blue right here. I kind of like it, so it'll be a gradient from dark up top to lighter down there. So that's what we want to do. Now that we have a darker color selected, let's go into our literal selection tool. We want to go and choose rectangle, and we just want to draw a rectangle around the top of the sky, and that is going to be where gradient starts. Now, it's automatically going to fill with the color that we had already chosen because we have color fill checked. So if you don't have color fill checked and you want to do this, basically you'll just grab this color and dump it into here. Either way works, whatever's more convenient for you. Now we're going to unselect, and now we have our darker color and our lighter color, but obviously that doesn't look very real. That doesn't look good. We need to make a gradient. You're going to do that by coming over here to Adjustments and Gaussian Blur. When we choose Gaussian Blur, as we drag the pencil to the right, we get more blur. The more we drag, the more blur that we get. So now I'm just going to drag it all the way over. We have a nice gradient with this. So you can click this, uncheck it, and now we have a nice gradient sky for your use. Now you also have gradients embedded within other things in tarot cards as well. For example, we have a gradient on the armor here and things like that. If you want to do multiple gradients, you're basically going to duplicate this and go forth and do what you need. For example, we can go to the selection tool again, choose rectangle, and choose color fill again. That will make it one less step, so we don't have to drag things over. And now we're going to make this into a new layer. And in the new layer, we're going to do the selection tool and do color fill. Maybe make it right here. And so now we have another gradient. We're going to deselect. We're going to go back to Gaussian Blur and make another blur as well. So now we have multiple gradients. So if you need to gradient that, you can do it. You can multiple areas with gradient. So you can do this on a sky. You can do this on armor. You can do this on, on a variety of different things. This is not just isolated to skies either. We can do a lot of cool gradient effects within here. I think this is pretty powerful. Let's go for an example with So let's sort of see how we do a gradient effect here, which is going to be fairly simple. Let's go here. Let's do a darker color. We're going to go for Narender Pencil, which is under sketching. This is a free one that you get. And, so for example, we just have the head here or what have you, and just close this in. There we go. All right, now we want to pick up this red. Let's do the lighter red of here, and then just sort of dump it into here. There you go. So now you have the basic lightest color So now that we have the lightest color, let's grab the darker color from the outfit here. And we want to draw on here, but we want to make sure to draw only within this shape. So it's important to isolate it and to draw only in this shape. To do that, you're going to go to the layer you currently have selected. You're going to click it and click Alpha Lock. What does Alpha Lock mean? Alpha Lock basically says, when I draw anywhere on this canvas, I only want you to draw on this shape or on this layer. So this particular layer, we're only drawing on that. And you can see sort of the checkered pattern outside of that, meaning we cannot draw on that. Anyway, so now that we have the Alpha Lock there, we can go. We have the darker color. We could get the airbrush, and we can sort of go around here and get a darker color in there. So now you have that transition between the darker and the lighter. Now we want to smooth that out because we're talking right now about going here and doing Gaussian blur. So basically the same thing that we did before. So if we slide it over, we get a little bit more of a blur from this. So now we can get a color that's a little darker, a little bit darker, and just come in and make a little more. So now that we have it blurred, we can make the darker on the edges even darker. So let's get the brush, reduce the size, and we can come in and make a little bit more of a darker color within there too. So you have this nice transition between the two. So you have the darker color in there and the darker color in there. A little bit of a Gaussian blur, a little more Gaussian blur. We have sort of the same effect. Sort of the same effect. You just need a little blur and you have a nice transition or a nice shading that is going to be effective within the context of this shape. And meanwhile, you're like, okay, I'm going to make a full card. I need a mountain at a minimum. And I agree. We do need a mountain. Let's make a new layer over here. Let's grab a darker color for the mountain outline. Go with a black, let's say. For pen or pencil, we're going to go with a F-Tune fine liner. Now, this is a Franken-Tune free fine liner. Link in the description for this brush, or use whatever brush that you like. So if we need to do a mountain, we can come up here and make a couple of mountainous areas and whatnot, and there we have a mountain. Obviously, we need to now fill it in. Let's grab this color that looks acceptable for a mountain fill. We're going to grab this, drag it over, and then as we do that, we fill the mountain with color. Now, here's the challenging part. Now, we need to get some snow. Now, snow is much easier than you, would think. Snow looks rather difficult, but, it's just not. We're going to use a selection to add the snow. Now, obviously, if we go and just start adding snow and whatnot, it's going to go all over the place. Ideally, we want it to only go within the context of this mountain. How do we do that? We're going to go to layer 2, click it, and click Alpha Lock. What does that mean? That means if I now draw on here, it's only going to draw on this layer right here. Basically, anything that has color on this layer gets drawn on, while things that don't. So let's click, well, not click, let's touch 2 fingers to there and undo everything. Now let's go ahead and fill this in. The easiest way to do that by far is going to be with the selection tool. So I'm going to go over here. Now that I have Alpha Lock on, I'm going to choose freehand, and I'm just going to go across and start filling this with snow. So I have a little snowy area here, kind of have some snow here. Going to come up and have a little bit here and there. We're going to loop all the way around, and we're going to fill this area with the snow color, which is here. So let's grab it and move it over into our selection, and now we have snow on the hills. Now, obviously, we need to tweak this a little bit to make it look more realistic. To do that, let's just uncheck the selection. Now we have a nice little snowy patch. Let's get our brush, make it a little smaller, and then we can sort of come in here and make it a little bigger and make some of these, make some of the snow areas look a little bit more realistic with some dots and dashes and things like that. So we just have a little better variance in it. It doesn't look like we just literally pasted it on here. So that's going to be kind of our snow. Now, obviously, we need some gaps up here. We can do that by grabbing this color here and just coming on in here and making a few gaps here and there, and again, making it a little bit better. Now, obviously, you don't have to do this level of realism, but, you know, if you want to do it, then you can do it. So that's basically how we're just going to make some snowy areas and whatnot. So that's going to be kind of cool for us. So overall, that looks pretty solid, and I like it. And there is how you're going to do mountains. So now we want another layer of mountains that's going to be easy to do. Let's go ahead and grab a really dark color and get our pencil that we had before, lower the size, or maybe increase the size a little bit. And we need this to be on a new layer. Let's grab a new layer and come in here and just sort of make, you know, some mountains. Drag it into here, and now we have more mountains. Obviously, we can come back here and make some marks and what have you, you know, to a little bit more mountain detail. You can add snow if you're really so inclined. We can pick this up and undo our mistake, etc., etc. So this makes a pretty easy and simple level of mountains. So I may also want to make a little mist in between here. Super easy to do. Let's go to airbrushing, soft brush. It's a big soft brush. Let's get it, the opacity really, really low. Let's jack the size. Now we are going to paint on here, right between here. So let's make sure that we select that layer. Again, that is alpha locked. So anything that we do is only going to affect that layer, which is perfect. That's what we want, because we're just going to come to the bottom here and make a little bit of a mist sort of in there. So, you know, that's probably a little too large of a mist. We can reduce the size a little bit, just like that, you know, and you now have a light mist in between the two layers. You can also put more realistic snow on here as well by reducing the size a lot, getting the opacity a little bit higher, and then putting a little bit of a, a little bit of a snowy feature up through in here. So you can easily do this, make a little bit more realism, what have you, in here, and whatever you'd like to do, you can do it and make as realistic as you want, or make it look exactly like that you like it to look. So it's kind of fun to just fiddle around and screw around with it. There's a couple of ideas for you to make a mountain and add a mountain to your Fool. Now, of course, a lot of people want to make the moon card and make a fancy, beautiful moon in the background of their shot. So we made a new layer here. We made a new place here. We have, sort of the gradient that we had before. We made a darker color here and then black over here. And then we did the gradient trick that we've done before. Let's pop in a new layer and make us a pretty big moon. We can go all out on it. I'm going to say for the moon, I'm going to go ahead and just pick up kind of this bright color here. It's not quite white, but it's fairly close. We can go over here to the selection tool. We can say, give me an ellipse, and I want to color fill it. So grab it, pull it in through here, and now we have the baseline of a moon. Let's click here to unselect it. Now we have the brighter part all set up and ready to go. And now we need all the details inside. There's obviously multiple colors going on here. You have a darker color inside, you have a lighter color on the outside. Let's pick up this lighter color here and make some blotches in here. What brush to use is going to be your main question. There's a couple of brushes that I kind of like. In textures, you have a rectangle brush. And if we get the size and adjust that, crank up the opacity on there and just start clicking around. It might help if I if I actually selected the moon and clicked within there. Here we go. So we have a couple of things. We can get, it's pin pressure based, so we can get there. Obviously, we need to, before we do all of this and get all fancy, we need to do what we have done before in the previous ones, which is here and alpha lock. So I will not be going all over on the outside of the moon. You don't want to get to the dark side of the moon. So we get a little bit of this and make some patterns in here. And this rectangle brush does us a treat. Does us a treat for this first layer over here. Now, I wouldn't mind making a second layer for the darker colors, quite frankly. Get in here and just dig in and grab that darker color and start making some blotches of that within here as well. So we have this nice sort of pattern that we're creating across here, and reduce the size a little bit and make us some blotchy moon colors. And then obviously, as we come in deeper in there, we want to increase the depth and the opacity of it and just sort of do like that. That's a little bit much, but you get the idea. A little too dark there, my friends. Go up here and line it up a little bit more, and then come in here and just sort of do some of that. But yeah, you get the idea. We have a lot of good stuff in here, and we can create a a quasi-realistic moon as it goes. Pick up the colors and sort of do the blotching in there. But yeah, so we get this darker color here and replace our color with that, and we get a little more realistic result as we sort of come in through there. Anyway, so now you get the rectangle brush is able to get a lot of that stuff. There is another brush that I kind of like, I'm not going to lie, and that is, where is that, the artistic brush. In there, we have a couple of nice ones. One of the ones that I kind of like, I'm not going to lie, is the hearts. The hearts brush is not too bad for this. If we get it and reduce the size a little bit and come in through here, that looks pretty cool as well. So just sort of fiddle around with the brushes and make yourself a moon pattern that's going to look, pretty good. It's going to look pretty good indeed. Just get this and start filling in. The ones that are pressure sensitive are going to be the ones that really do you the best, right? Really do you the best. We can pick up a history, pick up this lighter color. We can pick up that color and just sort of come in through here. Go in here, pick up the super light color and make some more blotches as we have through here and whatnot. So I do want kind of that glow on the outside, but keeping it a little darker, maybe on the inside towards the middle. Let's grab this color here. Let's make sure we're on the rectangle brush. Get a new layer, and I want to pump that beneath any other layers that we've been playing with, and just sort of go on the inside and make it a little bit darker on there, and that's going to give us some of the action that we need. We can increase the size quite a bit, opacity. We can get the color and make it a little darker, and just sort of hit a couple of blotches here and there, and that's going to give us the action that we need, because that's going to be pretty cool overall. I think that is going to be awesome. So if we want to play around with like a solar eclipse maybe, or something like that, there is a brush under luminance called Nebula. Now this brush is amazing. So we can get a new layer. Now let's make sure the layer is underneath this white layer. And we are going to go around on the outside with this brush. We're going to choose yellow. And as you paint it, it's not only yellow, but it's green and red and has all sorts of cool stuff. So we can come on the outside here and make like a solar eclipse looking thing. Just have some stuff going on out here and have some action there. And then we're going to change this to black. How are we going to do that? We're going to select that layer, make sure it's on top, and we're going to go to our selection tool, and then we're going to choose automatic, which means anything that I click is selected. And we're going to do color fill, meaning once it's selected, fill it with this color. Obviously, yellow is not going to be our color. We want an eclipse. Let's get black. So now when we click it, we have a solar eclipse. Very cool. Very cool indeed. I like it a lot. Let's go back to our eclipse layer and make like make some shooting stuff too. Coming out here. Oops, we need to get the yellow back. getting the yellow back is much better than having the color we just chose. Getting the, you sort of have some shooting thing coming out here, and, maybe some activities, some solar activities that we just didn't expect, some cool stuff coming out on the sides, maybe. Anyway, I don't know. So yeah, just playing around. Just playing around with that. So yeah, there you go. So a little solar eclipse action. Looks pretty cool indeed. I like the nebula brush. Again, that's under luminance and nebula. Get yourself some fun stuff to make for your sun card. Once you start wandering into the libraries that you can purchase, there's literally an endless supply of them, which is good and bad. The one that I like for nature stuff is called Frankentoon Nature Pack. Comes with 99 brushes, about $15. They have it on sale literally all the time. Sometimes half off, so you get it for $7. Sometimes 20% off, get it for $9, whatever. We start with the foliage base, and we just go down here and make some ground cover with a little bit of a brown. So there you have a little bit of a ground cover. It looks kind of cool. I like foliage base. It's kind of an interesting combo. Then as you get from there, you can go into your grass and whatnot. You got leafy brush, for example. You can have brush maker. We can swap it out, get a green, maybe like a darker green. Make a new layer and just put some of the green on there. Obviously, make it where it's a little bit larger than that, and put us in some darker colors. I like something a little bit darker, more saturated, maybe over on this side, whatnot. So you get a little bit of that pattern. And then as you come into the lighted section, you want it to be a little lighter so that you can come in with the same type of, ooh, that's a little much. Then you can come in with the same type of thing, desaturate it a little bit so it's not as retina burning, and then have some of that there. So I'm no professional foliage maker, but you kind of come in and make what you can with that. They have all sorts of brushes for grass. They have all sorts of interesting stuff that you can do. You can have moss, you can have rainforest. You can have all sorts of vines. You can make trees and whatnot. You can also make bouquets. You can have concept foliage, leaves, noisy stuff. We can put some wildflowers in there. We go maybe make some yellow wildflowers and increase the size so we actually see said wildflowers. Oh, that's terrible. Maybe go with a little bit of this. So we got some wildflowers within the brush and within the foliage. And again, you can make trees and whatnot. Also comes with water brushes, which are pretty cool. I like the water brushes. So if you want to make a water feature, you can come in and just get yourself a some water. Let's see. Let me grab some watercolor. No pun intended. Water. So we want it light as it goes into the distance. That would be great. Having a new layer would be fantastic. We want it light as it goes into the distance. And we want it to be a little more, there we go. We want it to be light as it goes into the distance and less saturated. And then as you come in through here and we come on through there, we're going to make it a little more saturated and whatnot. So there we go, a little more in the saturation. And then over here, when we get close, we want it super duper saturated. And having this on another layer that would be below. Everything else would be perfect. That way the water is not on the ground. There we go. Okay, so there you go. So then you can, summarize that. We can blur it around since we have it on the same layer, a little Gaussian blur, and blur the whole thing, make a little water feature coming through there. Now here's where the Frankentoon water stuff comes in. They do have brushes that is specifically for water. Again, they have grass, straight grass, all this. You have trees, stems, you have rocks and what have you. Not sponsored, by the way. They have clouds too. I don't like their cloud brushes as much as I like all the other stuff. I think that some of the cloud brushes are a little too much in my opinion, but there are other brushes that just make more sense once you're sort of playing around with it. Anyway, we have clouds over here, and then we have splash, random dirt, stuff like that. Turbulence, cascade. So we go with ocean. So this is sort of a little pattern that we can ride up on here. We can make maybe a new layer that's going to be above the water. We're going to get that dark color. We're going to increase the size a little bit, the opacity, and you can make, you can basically make some good looking, sort of water stuff going on. Just desaturate it, make it a little bit lighter, and then we can come in here and get a little pressure sensitivity and whatnot, and have some cool looking water going into the background. Here, a little more there, and have it maybe across through here. So the water looks, looks pretty cool. It doesn't look hyper realistic, but it looks all right. So it looks very wavy, very cool. And then they have splashes too, which I think is kind of cool. So you have a little bit of a cascade. So we get a little white on here and have some sort of splashes that are coming in across there, splashes that are coming up as the water's kind of hitting and whatnot. Sort of kind of cool, it's hitting a rock maybe and splashing up. And then you have a cascade here, more of a turbulence. There it is, splash. So you have splash. So you have, splash coming up across here. So there you go. So there's your water that's splashing as it hits the rocks or the shoreline or whatever. Anyway, this is kind of a fun thing to do. They have a lot of good libraries to choose from, and I like this one the best, the nature pack. Of course, there are thousands of nature packs for Procreate, but I like this one the best just because of the variant of stuff that we can do with it. We'll try the clouds out. I mean, I'm not going to click the clouds out of bed. Let's see, where was it? There are better clouds libraries, in my opinion. There are better cloud libraries in there, but you do have like clouds and fog and whatnot. So you can come in here and get your cloud formations, which, doesn't look that bad. You can come in here and get, we come in here and get some cloud formations like this. There you go. A little bit of a base cloud and whatnot. Then come back and get some pure white and come in to the top maybe and get a little more realism with the cloud formations and whatnot. Get some realism in there. It doesn't look too bad. It doesn't look drastically bad, but it doesn't look it doesn't look as good. It doesn't look as good as some of the other libraries, in my opinion, of course. Anyway, they have several clouds that you can do in here. They have fog, they have smoke, several ocean things. You have rocks, where you can make some rock stuff. The grass libraries I think are interesting, like wild grass coming through here. Obviously, we need to get a wild grass color and come in through here and make it where you can actually see it. That'd be great. Actually see, that would be fantastic if you actually see the wild grass. So we need to be on the we need to be on the layer with the actual grass. Where's it at? Here we go. All right, and we get some wild grass in through here. It's kind of repetitive. I mean, like some of the grass stuff is kind of repetitive, so you got to use it kind of sparingly. You don't want to sit there and just just spam it across here. In other words, you don't go like that. That's not going to do you any good. That's not going to do anybody any good. So you're just going to kind of hit it across here and there maybe, and get a little feature in there, a little smaller grasses up here maybe. Get some yellow and get some of the brighter grasses, as we come in through there. Anyway, that is sort of a sampler of their library and stuff. They do have flowers and things like that. There's obviously going to be people better than me at this. That they have stamps with trees. Not a big fan of the stamped trees because they look like stamped trees. I mean, in general, I think you should make your own trees and all this other stuff. So that's just my opinion, though. Anyway, there's sort of a sample of the Frankentoon nature brushes. There's another library I'll show you later that does similar stuff, but it's more cartoony. In other words, this is kind of going for more of a realism. As you can see from the clouds and from the ocean, you see more of a realism effect here. But there are other libraries that are more for cartoony based. So in case you want to come through and make something like this, you don't exactly want hyper realistic oceans in a card like this. So the other library is more of a cartoony. It's going to give you kind of a more friendly environment for something like that. We'll do that later. But for right now, here it is a sampler of the Frankentoon stuff. So what about the Bumbleberry Hollows, you ask? That has a cool feature where when we draw something, we have a little outline like that. I mean, I could probably do that with a circle, but hand doing that is going to be kind of inconsistent. How do I get that to be consistent every time, whether it be a circle, square, a rabbit, or any other object in my world where I want a little extra outline? Let's do that. All right, to make a circle like that for the Wheel of Fortune, you could do that with a pencil. Of course you could, right? We could draw a big circle and then hold our finger down and expand the circle and move it or whatever we want to do. You know, that's kind of a waste because there's an easier way to do this. Let's choose a color of the circle, which is going to be that little pink color that I kind of like there. Let me find the pink. Okay, there's a nice pink color. It looks, well, kind of put it over here. It looks sort of similar to this. I kind of like it. It looks cute. Okay, what I want to do is go to selection over here. I'm going to go to ellipse, and I'm going to make sure that color fill is checked. That's going to fill it with this color after we select. And because it's an ellipse, we just do it like this. Now, if we hold our finger down, it usually makes a circle, but, you know, not on a selection, but we can get pretty close. All right, well, there you go. Not exactly the pink that we want. I mean, we can go and try to make it a little better. Try to match it a little bit. There we go. Now, that's the pink that I like. All right, deselect that. Now we have a nice pink circle. But what about the outline? You're like, what about the outline? We need a good outline in here. Ooh, I'm like knocking all my stuff off the table. Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to get this layer, and I want to duplicate this by sliding this over here and choosing duplicate. Now, this one here is going to be my real layer, So let's click here and rename it to be real. That's going to be my real layer. The other one's going to be a play layer. We're going to mess around with it. We're going to make it a little bit more like this. So we're going to go over here with the selection. And, you know, sorry, not select. We want to go over here with adjustments, Gaussian blur, and I want to sort of drag out and get a little bit of a blur on here. So not like too crazy, but I do want a little bit of a blur coming out of there. All right, we'll go Gaussian blur that much. That seems all right. I like that. Coming out right about to there. Looks pretty good. We'll do 16%, 20%, what have you. Now I want to get this layer and duplicate that because we are going to fill it with white. We need to put that layer underneath both layers. Let's turn the real layer off and just stick with this Gaussian blur for now. All right, now I want to get a white color coming in here with my white, and I want to get that layer and I want to fill it. So we're going to go here to the selection. We're going to go automatic and we're just going to click it. And you click it and it will turn the bottom layer right here solid white. So you can see that there is an outline now. It's kind of thick, but you know, you can reduce it. You can reduce it. Don't blur it that much. It's kind of thick. So basically what's happening is we have an outline layer at the bottom, which is white. And then on top, we have this fuzzy layer that we did all of the Gaussian blur with. Now, you remember I said that was my play layer because when I turn it off, now turn that back on, now I have an outline across the layer. You can adjust the size of the outline if you want it to be exactly this size. Don't blur it as much. But basically, that's going to give you an outline over any shape that you have, which, by the way, is very difficult, most variety of other ways. So there you go. You can play around with it and get an outline just like you see in some other cards. And you're like, okay, what about making sun rays, doing something like this? And I'm like, okay, let's give it a shot. We don't have the pink background, but we can duplicate whatever you want. I will create a new layer. This is going to be accomplished with a soft brush from the airbrushing library. So simple. You just basically come in here. You're going to pick like a white first, and then you're going to come in here and make that a lot, and I mean a lot of resolution in here. We're coming in here, make it happen. I like it. And then we're going to kind of just get this little sun that we made, and we're going to scoot it out a little bit. There we go. Nice and easy. Obviously, you can come in here and gradient blur it a little bit. We're going to be using gradient blur throughout here. Make it look nice and simple, nice and vibrant. Another layer, and we can come in with that red. that bright red that you see in there. Make pretty much the same thing that you see here. And again, if we want to come in to that particular new layer that we just made, gradient blur it as well. We have a nice representation of kind of where we want to go with this. Very, very simple. Sun rays, basically going to be the same thing. New layer. We've got the airbrush, going to go straight for white. And that looks kind of like an egg. I mean, I'm not going to lie. That looks kind of like an egg. I mean, can we even it out a little bit? I know it's on a nut. Can we make it not look like an egg? There we go. That's much better. That's much better. It started to look like an egg yolk. Not going to lie. So we're going to get the sun rays. We're going to lower the size of this a little bit, right? Going to come through here, and we're going to hold it. And as you hold it, it'll straighten it out for you. And you can do pressure sensitive. You can do non-pressure sensitive. Whatever you feel like, just make your sun rays the way that you want them to be. If you want to be blurred out a little bit, you're on a new layer. Just hit Gaussian blur and blur those out a little bit. And now you have some nice sun rays, whatever kind of thing that you would like. And, you know, just get her done. Just get her done. If you want more defined sun rays, we could come up and duplicate it a couple of times and then hold on to it. Do the same thing here. Duplicate it a couple of times, hold on to it, and get us a little bit of rays. And then, of course, we can Gaussian blur again. There's no limit to how many times that you want to do that. So there you go. There are your sun rays. And you can tweak this however much you would like, however style that you would like. You know, sometimes you want to just change the opacity. We can just get 2 fingers, click on the level. Now we're on opacity. I can lower the opacity of this. The sun rays are a little too much. I mean, it doesn't look like a sun ray. It looks like an airbrush. That's perfectly fine. We can lower the opacity, make it whatever intensity that you would like. That'll go for the other layers too. That white is a little too much. Double finger on it and just reduce it a little bit, because softness is key, as with everything in the sky. Everything in the sky, softness is going to be the key. And that is how you're going to make some cute little sun rays on your particular tarot card. And a lot of people may be like, I want to make a wispy cloud. Not going to be a problem. Let's go to Untitled Artwork. Now, Frankentoon Brushes has, I got my exercise goal by making this video. Frankentoon Brushes on Frankentoon Nature Bee has a cloud liner, which I think is cool because you can come into this, set this thing up here, lower the opacity a little bit, and just come in with a cloud liner and just come in and just say, hey, we're going to just sort of wisp through there. We're going to capture this, a little bit more intensity here, and just come in down through here. Come in a little bit lighter and then more intense at the bottom. There we go. And then you can lower the opacity of this entire layer. Or we can just sort of come in and make some of the wispy things that are coming out of the cloud and whatnot. Like that. Well, that looks terrible. But like this, a little wispy there, a little wispy coming across here kind of thing. And then you can sort of get the smudge brush too. And tweak this a little bit, make it a little bit more smudgier, a little bit more wispy, right? With the smudge brush, there's all sorts of miracles here. I like it. Sort of blend it in. Jack the size of that smudge brush. Come in here on the edges, make it a little wispier when you get to the edge, make it a little less defined and whatnot. We can also sort of lower the opacity of the entire layer a little bit to make it look more realistic. 2 fingers, lower the opacity, make it more sort of ethereal and wispy, as it say. Obviously, there is still an eraser. We can get the eraser, use the same brush. We can get the eraser, use the exact same brush, make it smaller, and just, make it smaller and just take out some of the details that we just don't like. Set your eraser way down in the opacity. So it's very subtle. We have very subtle lines and sort of lines coming through here. So it doesn't look like you just did it digitally. It doesn't look like you just did it digitally, right? Well, that looks kind of crappy, but you know what I'm saying. A little bit of a wispy nature to it. Smudge brush, you'll be able to fix that with a smudge brush, a little eraser in here, make some more lines and what have you. And now you have this nice wispy cloud to work with. So there is how I would approach that issue. And some people have a preference for an outline, a little bit of a obviously a little blurred outline to an object. Now, that's not a difficult object, but this one looks fairly difficult. How are we going to outline this? Well, we've already kind of done it in a previous technique. Well, let's go ahead and check it out. We have ourselves a crow because we have ourselves a crow, and we want to make it glow. We want to make the crow glow. I think that's a fair assessment. It is a fair assessment. We can get the background color if you want. We can actually make it that gray, just like you see it here. We can make it glow in the exact manner that you have. Oh my, what's going on with that? We need to erase this. I don't know what's happening with this, but the crow seems to have a partner here. The crow seems to have a partner. There we go. All right, this is much better. We got to get serious here. Now, we need to make the crow glow. How are we going to do that? First thing we're going to do is go here and duplicate the crow. Now, that's going to be very important. We're going to get the layer underneath that crow, and we want to select it. We're going to go to our selection thing here. We're going to go to automatic. In other words, everything on this layer that I touch is going to be a selection. We want to go to color fill as well. Now we need to fill it. We need to glow with that color. Let's go ahead and find that. Looks kind of like this, maybe a little bit. That's okay. That's close enough. Now let's go ahead and select it. When we click it, it selects, well, when we click the bottom layer, you can see that it selects the entire crow. The entire crow is selected. Now you know what we're going to do because we did this in a previous technique. We're going to go over here to adjustments. Going to do a little Gaussian blur and drag it up and make it blurry. Make it blurry indeed. Click this to get off of it. Go back to our layers and reintroduce the glow. And now we have the glow on the crow. Obviously, we can go back to this layer and make it glow even more, right? We can eliminate the crow. We can get this layer, make it glow even more. A lot of cool things we can do with this glow and make it really cool is to go to a a little bit of a different thing. Maybe a color dodge glow, where now we have it and it has more of a mysterious glow. What that is the, basically the blending mode. Yet multiply, and you can play around with these and figure out what the best one would be. Color dodge really makes it literally glow and look kind of cool and eerie. And now obviously if we want the glow to be a little bit bigger, we can go to this layer again and do another Gaussian blur and just widen it up a little bit. You just fiddle with it until you like it, because I want it to look like this maybe. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of keep it like that. I think that looks pretty legit. It looks pretty legit indeed. And that is going to be how we add a glow around any object. No matter how complex, it's not going to be that hard. And again, fiddle around with your blending mode. You don't have to be married to color dodge. Maybe I want a lighter color. Maybe I want a soft light. Or, ooh, look at the hard light. Makes it a different color. A linear light. And again, you can play with it. Hard mix gives it a cool effect. Overlay is kind of fun. But overlay in this instance doesn't show up very well, but as a general rule, overlay is pretty fun to do with other blending modes. Anyway, so we can just mess with it. And, I'm not married to color dodge, but I'm definitely going for color dodge for this demonstration. So that's how you're going to add a glow around any object. This can be used for not only the crow, it can be used for anything that glows, like the angels that glow, the hanged man. His head glows. There's a lot of things that you want to put a glow around. And I think this is a fantastic method. Super easy to do as well for this kind of thing. Now you can, of course, come in here with this and fiddle around with one of my favorite brushes, which is going to be over here under space stuff. Abstract, burnt tree, maybe, materials, luminance, industrial. There's a lot of good things in here. Water, not so much. Organic, not so much. Nebula, luminance nebula. That's what I was looking for. We can come in and just touch nebula through. Well, we need to make it a little larger. We can come in here and touch nebula across this and make it look really cool. A really wild effect as well on that layer. Put in the crow, and now he's sort of misty and he's floating in the clouds like an angel. A lot of tarot cards will have an angel. You want it to be floating in the clouds? This is how you're going to do it, all right? This is how you're going to do it. And of course, we can mess around with that. We can mess around with that blending mode and get us something super cool. Look at screen. So cool. It's such a dramatic effect. Look at lighter color. Look at so cool. Yeah, there's so many wild and interesting things. Vivid light makes a really nice little thing. Obviously, if we're going to do an angel, I'm probably going to be a little bit more. Yeah, hard light is not going to be it. An angel is going to be a little more on maybe the lighter color, maybe color dodge. And, again, you can come in here and decrease the opacity a little bit so it's not as in your face. There are cloud brushes as well we can play with, but for something simple, something quick, it's a nice refreshing change for that crow. And that is how we're going to add a little glow to the crow.